The movie begins in the town of Ohio in 1956. Jonathan and Harry talk about school and scoring with girls while driving home. They see Marilyn and Rosalie by the side of the road. The young boys begin to admire Marilyn's gorgeous looks. Looks like we're off to a good start. Look at that beauty, that curvy body. Ay, mi corazón. Since he's too focused on Marilyn's gravity-defying knockers, Jonathan crashes the car into a fire hydrant. To help him out, Marilyn comes closer so that Jonathan can have a better look at her goodies. Don't worry, amigo. It was all worth it. Fortunately for him, the damage isn't that bad. Later at home, Jonathan hears a motorcycle revving while reading his favorite adult magazine. He looks out the window and finds the free-spirited Eugene trying out his motorcycle. It seems Eugene's family just moved into the neighborhood and is in the process of moving their stuff in. While driving his motorcycle in circles, Eugene crashes into Kenny's car. Concerned, Kenny and his girlfriend Bunny check on Eugene. After learning that Eugene is fine, the couple leaves him behind. Sometime later, Jonathan introduces himself to Eugene. Being a country boy, he's amazed that Eugene is from Chicago. The two then play hoop, and Eugene asks Jonathan about the chick situation in their town. Jonathan learns that Eugene wants to stay away from girls because he doesn't want to get into trouble. It seems he's trying to avoid getting kicked out of school again for being a ladies' man. Smart choice. He notices Jonathan is amazed by his story and learns that the country boy is also a virgin. Eugene also learns that Jonathan likes Marilyn, but she doesn't know he exists. Feeling sorry for his new friend, Eugene decides to visit the fair that night with Jonathan. Later that night, Jonathan sees Rosalie, Marilyn, and Bunny at a kissing booth. He takes a spin on the wheel, hoping to land Marilyn, but ends up winning a kiss from Rosalie instead. Eugene takes a spin and lands Marilyn on the first try. He doesn't hold back in kissing her, which makes Jonathan annoyed. Bunny also seems annoyed that Eugene kissed Marilyn and not her. Since his real target is Bunny, Eugene borrows money from Jonathan to have another go at the wheel. He manages to land Bunny and takes his time kissing her. Wow, talk about getting your money's worth. Kenny sees his girlfriend being naughty, so he marks his territory. While leaving the fair, Eugene offers a bet about turning Jonathan into a booty magnet in a month. He says it's a way to beat boredom and stay out of trouble. Feeling a little insulted, Jonathan walks away from the deal for now. The next day, Jonathan changes his mind and takes up the bet. When they arrive at school later, Eugene gets to work and teaches Jonathan the basics. He teaches him to peek at Marilyn's skirt, but their teacher catches Jonathan pitching his tent. Later that afternoon, Jonathan tries impressing Marilyn with his bike skills. Unfortunately, he gets distracted and crashes into a car. Marilyn checks on him and wipes his bleeding mouth. In return, Jonathan decides to cop a feel over bouncy castles. Marilyn doesn't seem to mind and continues wiping his mouth with her saliva-filled hanky. Maybe I should give this a try too. While celebrating Jonathan's success later, Eugene sees Bunny at the jukebox. He flexes his music taste on her, and she's powerless against his charms. She even says that she isn't going steady with Kenny. Shortly after that, Marilyn joins the two boys and asks Eugene out on a movie date. He accepts, and Jonathan gets angry. They go outside, and Eugene explains it's an opportunity for them. He says he has a plan and tells Jonathan to invite Bunny. During the movie date, Jonathan watches in jealousy as Marilyn flirts with Eugene. Bunny gets jealous, so she flirts with Jonathan too. Unfortunately, Kenny's friends see them and immediately tell Kenny. It doesn't take long until Kenny jumps into action and confronts Jonathan. Eugene butts in and reveals he's the one that asked Bunny out. Eventually, the night ended with Kenny and Eugene testing each other's balls and destroying their father's car. Ooh boy, I wouldn't want to be there when their father learns about that. Since Eugene doesn't show up to school the next day, Jonathan decides to visit him at his house. He learns that Eugene's father grounded him. The two then get drunk while roaming around town on a motorcycle. Kenny sees the drunk friends and reports them to the police. Shortly after that, Jonathan and Eugene get pulled over crashing into a bush. Fortunately, the police officer hates snitches, so he lets them go with just a warning. The two try sobering up before going home. Jonathan talks about his plans for the future and learns about Eugene's sad past. Before going home, they end up in front of the department store owned by Kenny's family. They then decide to serve some sweet revenge on Kenny. When Jonathan wakes up in the morning, he's shocked to see a mannequin with him in bed. Before going to school, Jonathan and Eugene admire their handiwork at the department store. Later at school, Eugene asks Bunny out on a date, and she agrees. In the afternoon, Jonathan sees Eugene working at the gas station. It seems he's working to pay for the repairs of his father's car. He then pesters Jonathan about the bet and Marilyn. Hoping to ease the peer pressure, Jonathan calls Marilyn and asks her out on a date. To both their surprise, she agrees. Jonathan's celebration quickly ends after Eugene tells him to reach third base. Later that night, Bunny sneaks out for her date with Eugene. Meanwhile, Jonathan makes out with Marilyn at the end of their date. "So, are you winning, son?" After that night, both the boys get on more dates with the girls and get closer to each other. One day, both couples have a date on a nearby ranch. Eugene talks about his dreams of owning a stable someday with Bunny. Meanwhile, Jonathan gets to work on Marilyn's juicy lips inside his car. Their intimacy reaches a boiling point, and Jonathan decides it's time to make his big move. Marilyn tries stopping him, but Jonathan is too thirsty after 17 years of no action. In the end, he accidentally rips her undies while they fall out of the car. It looks like someone has no chill. Then again, 17 years of self-service will do that to you. Later that night, Marilyn expresses her disgust for Jonathan's behavior. Before Jonathan leaves, Marilyn tells him that she likes that he looks harmless but is extremely dangerous. She then says that her parents will be away for the weekend. Well, we all know where this is heading. The fated day arrives, so Jonathan goes to Marilyn's house. They put on their birthday suits and go to bed. Aye, those knockers do be defying gravity. Marilyn hesitates after learning that Jonathan didn't bring his raincoat. She does change her mind after our boy says he'll settle for just the tip. Oh boy, that line always leads to disaster. Despite Marilyn constantly reminding him, Jonathan fails to exit stage right. Marilyn gets angry with him, and just when he's about to apologize, her parents suddenly return home. Marilyn rushes to get Jonathan out of the house through the roof. While escaping, Marilyn's mother sees Jonathan. While taking their polio shots the next day, Eugene asks Bunny out on another date. She takes a rain check since she'll be having dinner with her parents that night. When Eugene tries to surprise her that night, he finds Kenny joining them for dinner. The next day, an angry and jealous Eugene confronts Bunny about their dinner party. She tries to explain her side, but things don't work out. Meanwhile, Marilyn makes up for not talking to Jonathan lately by asking him to prom 6 weeks from now. Later that night, Eugene and Jonathan get into a fight with Kenny and his gang. Things go out of hand. Jonathan breaks his arm, and Eugene's father gets forced to pay the damages. Tired of cleaning up his son's mess, Eugene's father kicks him out of their house that night. Eugene disappears for several days, leaving Jonathan and Bunny concerned for his safety. Bunny feels everything is her fault, and regrets not standing up for Eugene. Before leaving, she tells Jonathan to inform her of any news about her lover. Time passes, and Eugene still doesn't show up. One day, Marilyn talks to Jonathan and cancels their prom date. It turns out that a famous quarterback alumnus is attending prom and wants Marilyn to be his date. Jonathan goes savage mode and ends his relationship with her. On the night of prom, Jonathan sits alone at the local diner, contemplating his decisions in life. Eugene suddenly arrives, and he's happy to see him again. Before catching up, Eugene asks to see Bunny, so Jonathan takes him to the prom venue. When they arrive, Eugene sees Bunny dancing with Kenny. One of the faculty members then tells the boys to leave since Eugene is no longer a student. Kenny sees them and decides to pick another fight. However, Eugene doesn't bite and says Kenny isn't worth the trouble. The two boys then exit the venue while Bunny leaves Kenny behind and tries going after Eugene. Later, Eugene tells Jonathan what happened to him. It turns out that after getting kicked out, Eugene went to Kentucky and found a job as a stable boy. He says that he's happy with his life now and only came back to get Bunny to run away with him. Jonathan then tells Eugene that Bunny cares about him. Since Jonathan will be leaving for college next year, Eugene feels there's no reason for him to stay. Since Jonathan plans to be a dentist, Eugene jokes about visiting him someday and having him fix his teeth. Jonathan then opens up about Marilyn and how he was wrong about her. He believes that he was too focused on smashing that he failed to get to know her first. Jonathan then swears he'll never look at a pair of bouncy peaks ever again. Emotional damage! Shortly after that, Jonathan fetches Bunny and takes her to see Eugene. They talk while Jonathan waits for them from a distance. When they return to meet Jonathan, Bunny reveals she'll run away with Eugene to Kentucky. She asks Jonathan to tell her parents about her decision and that she'll be fine. Eugene offers to drop Jonathan in town, but he declines. He believes that Eugene and Bunny will need all the head start they can get. Before Eugene leaves, a teary-eyed Jonathan hugs him.
Alright, I did not expect to get touched by this scene.
Jonathan immediately delivers Bunny's message to her father and goes to the local diner. There, Kenny confronts him about Eugene. Tired of the crap he's giving him and his friend, Jonathan decides to destroy Kenny's car. The two then play some bum cars until Jonathan makes Kenny crash into a fire hydrant. After that, Jonathan goes back to the diner and asks Rosalie out for a date. Damn, she be looking fine now. Rosalie agrees to the date. Jonathan's car then falls apart, so they decide to use her car during their date instead. The movie ends as Jonathan drives off while Rosalie smiles in amazement at how much he has changed.